Good evening to all. Myself, Dr. M. Shanmugam, Regional Director, IGNOR Regional Center, Bangalore. Today we have organized a webinar on NEP 2020, the game changer. As we know that National Education Policy NEP 2020 officially started the Union Government given upload July 29, 2020, making significant overall India education system by replacing 1986 policy. So in this regard, Regional Center Bangalore promoting or highlighting this importance of NEP by visiting various university, institution, college, how much this NEP is going to be helpful for the new system of education. Particularly, there is a lot of flexibility and choice are given here in order to implement the NEP. Earlier, the flexibility of the studying the different subject in the same stream is not available. Now, because of this introducing of NEP, a student can choose of many subjects in the same stream what he has joined and studying. So, for this webinar, we have with us an educationalist. We're having more than 45 years of experience in teaching. Dr. H.S. Ganesh Bhatta, as his education qualification, BSc, PhD in education, MA in sociology, and also Sir has did a PGDHE program and PGDHR from IGNO, and also has served as an IGNO coordinator for more than 30 years. Is involved in IGNO activities. Further, he has got retired from this MES teacher, College of Education, and retired principal. And Sir is having more than 45 years of total teaching experience and having a family academic career counselor, a communicator, address various professional parents and students and teachers. Also the social worker. And it's also he is teaching as orphanages, NGOs, and also we are happy to know that he has donated blood over more than 50 times. So we have with us a right person to highlight the importance of the NEP 2020, how it's going to be, change the system in the education in order to bring the new area and going to help in the community of these student communities. So I request Dr. H.S. Ganesh Bhatta sir, please present your talk on NEP 2020. I once again thank on behalf of our Regional Center Bangalore, on behalf of IGNO University and Vice Chancellor in this time. Thank you, sir. Please deliver your talk, NEP 2020, the game changer.
Thank you, Sri Dr. Shanmugam, the Regional Director, and also the entire IGNO office who treats me as their friend anytime I'm here in the IGNO campus. Now, NEP 2020, as it is told by the Regional Director, is a game changer in the context of India. Why do we call NEP 2020 as a game changer? I will follow the talk with the slides so that you will be able to get all the details without missing any. Therefore, the NEP 2020 started with basically a committee that was formulated before 2020. It was, if I remember, in 2016, a committee was formed, and based upon that, they were able to decide on the way in which the national education should go on in India from 2020 onwards. Now, with reference to this, the NEP 2020 is divided into 4 different concepts. It is related to the school education and also the higher education. Higher education. Now, NEP 2020 basically treats the whole concept of education as something where it is the human development. Now, when I think of human development, so far, with reference to the context that we are in, India, has it ever thought of the human development earlier or not? If you happen to ask a question, the answer is yes. We did think of the education as the component of human development. When the policy was made in 1986, I still remember the way in which we were working for the promotion of the 1986 National Education Policy way back in 1990s. Now, when we think of the National Education Policy, the 2020, it was composed by the Kasturi Rangan as the chairman and various other people, and TSR Subramanian committee report, which was submitted in 2016. Based upon that committee report, the committee in 2020 made a vision for education. What is the vision of the policy 2020? It envisions an India-centered education system which is highly debatable even to this day. We call it as Indian knowledge system, which contributes directly to transferring our nation sustainably into equitable and vibrant knowledge society. When I think of sustainability, as you know, sustainable environment, sustainable water level, sustainable society, the sustainability refers to not only the society of today, the society that we are going to see even in future, 2030, 2040, even to that particular society, the education should become sustainable. This is done by providing high quality education for all. When I use the word all, it encompasses all the citizens of India, starting from the child who is 0 years unto a man who probably is 100 years. What do I mean by this? A very small child needs education. The people who are there in the middle ages need education. The people who are 60, 70, who are called adults, they do need education. Therefore, National Education Policy of 2020 looks into all these domains of the human ages. Now, what is the overview of the policy? It is the quality early childhood care education which should be available for all children between 3 to 6 years by 2025. We are yet to reach this goal because 3 to 6 is the new concept of education. The 1986 education policy was thinking of education for children above 6 years. The National Education Policy of 2020 is thinking of the education of children between 3 to 6 years. What is this 3 to 6 years? We have got Anganawadis, we have got Balavatikas, we have got other groups which are NGOs which take care of children who are below the age of 6. They will make the children to get ready for the standard 1 education. But National Education Policy says it is the responsibility of the government to see that the education is given for the children in the age group of 0 to 3 as well as the children who are there in the age group of 3 to 6. The 0 to 3, the education given for mothers, the National Education Policy says we must be able to train mothers well because child is going to be the future citizen of the country. Every student in the grade 5 and beyond should be able to achieve foundational literacy and numeracy. What is foundational literacy and numeracy? There is what is called foundational stage of education. Now in the foundational stage of education, the National Education Policy says that you must be able to make the children to speak in more than 1 language because India is a multilingual country. And in the schedule, it is declared that we have got so many national languages, around 14. Now all these national languages, all over India, the children should be able to converse with these languages. Now as a person who has traveled across the country, I know how difficult it is. If you happen to go to a state which is not your state, you will never be able to communicate with the people who are there. Take for example a Kannadiga going to Tamil Nadu, a Kannadiga going to Malayalam, a Kannadiga going to Orissa. We will not be able to converse with the people at all. Therefore, the National Education Policy says teach as many languages as possible for the children when they are in early ages. Why? Children pick up the language very quickly when they are young. The picking up of the language becomes weak as we grow. Therefore, multilingualism should be there in the foundational stage. The national education policy next says or divides the whole concept of education in a psychological way as 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 levels of education. What is this 5 years? 5 years of foundational education, 3 years of preparatory education, 3 years of middle school education, 4 years of the higher education and the higher secondary education and the secondary education. Therefore, 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 is the pattern of education according to the national education policy. And what is the nature of the curriculum on the whole? It says it is integrated, it is going to be flexible, and it is a kind of a curriculum where the curricular and the co-curricular activities that the child undergoes is not going to be separated. Now, as children, if you happen to go back to our ages, you know, we were emphasizing much upon the cognitive development of the individual. What is cognition? Cognition related to logical reasoning, cognition related to analysis, synthesis, learning of mathematics, learning of science. Much importance was not given for art education, vocational education, the performing arts. Now the national education policy says you must be able to think of curricular and co-curricular activities which are going to be blended. What is blending? When you teach mathematics in such a way that there is a quiz. Teach mathematics in such a way that there is a project. Teach mathematics in such a way that there is a model. Teach mathematics in such a way that the child should be able to understand what is the application of mathematics in the society. For this is the change that is happening. Therefore, integrating and bringing flexibility in the school curriculum. It also says there is no hierarchy in the subject. What do I mean by no hierarchy? Normally, it is a kind of a thought that happens in the society that any person who studies mathematics is the best person. Any person who knows English is the person who is better off. This kind of a concept is taken away from the national education policy. Mathematics is as important as art. Therefore, the national education policy says STEAM education. STEAM. Science, technology, engineering, art and mathematics. Now, art has the equal position as that of mathematics. Therefore, it says it is a liberal education. Therefore, national education policy has brought lot of changes. Hence, I call NEP 2020 as a game changer in the context of India. It also emphasizes that 100% gross enrollment ratio from preschool to secondary school. What is preschool? The preschool education is, as we understand, it is Montessori education, it is LKG, it is UKG, it is preparatory, the standard 1, standard 2, standard 3. From there to secondary education, national education policy says secondary education is not up to 10th standard, secondary education is up to 12th standard. The concept of pre-university will get washed away. After the 12th standard, the student will directly go to the university education. After 12th standard. There are so many courses which gets integrated with the education. A student, if he happens to take up a particular course after PUC, the student who enters the degree will get an integrated MSc, an integrated MA. That means there is no separation between undergraduation and post-graduation. For this is the change that is going to happen. Then it is effective governance through school complexes. What are school complexes? School complexes are bigger schools. Now in a vicinity, if there are about 20 primary schools, these primary schools, they are going to be a leading school which is a secondary school. For example, in the state of Karnataka, we have got what is called KPS schools now. that is Karnataka Public School. Now in the Karnataka Public School, starting from the age of 3 up to the 12th standard, the children will have education in the same campus. According to the new thoughts in psychology, bigger the school, the social development of the child is going to be better. The emotional development of the child is going to be better. Now the national education policy does not only think of the intelligence measured in terms of IQs. It takes SQ, the social quotient. It takes EQ, emotional quotient. It takes another SQ, the spiritual quotient. Because man is the embodiment of the physical body as well as mental aspects. Now when I speak of the mental aspects, how healthy is the child becomes more important. Whether the child is capable of living well in the society, will he be able to adjust himself to the society? All these components are taken in national education policy. It is also oriented towards very serious, rigorous teacher preparation, robust recruitment and well-defined career path for teachers. For teachers, when I say, starting from the teacher who teaches at the pre-primary, to the primary, to the secondary, to the graduation, to the post-graduation, to the teachers who are going to be doctoral teachers, for all the teachers, it is going to think of very, very serious way of faculty development program and continuous professional development. We call it as continuous professional growth or professional development, CPD program. It says in a span of 1 year, every teacher should be able to have at least 50 years of continuous professional development training programs. For when we speak of all these things, the national education policy has got a big vision. The new vision and the achievement for higher education with large, well-resourced, multidisciplinary institutions. Now, in the introductory part, Dr. Shanmugam was telling you about various options the student is going to have when he goes to the higher education, which is multidisciplinary institution, interdisciplinary. It says you study physics and chemistry, along with that you should study Constitution of India. You study chemistry and biology, you must be able to have knowledge of business mathematics. You study commerce and accountants, you should have a little knowledge of environment. Therefore, wherever we see that there is a student who is studying in the college, a BA will not simply focus on arts. A BCom will not simply focus on commerce. A BSc will not simply focus on science. There is science in commerce, there is commerce in science. There is arts in commerce, there is commerce in arts. Such kind of possibilities, permutation combinations are available with the national education policy. Then it also speaks of empowered governments and autonomy for higher education institutions. Now you know, we had the UGC, we had the IACTE, we had some Medical Council of India. All these bodies are put into one single body today, which is going to control the entire system of education in the Viksit Bharat. Therefore, the national education policy is also going to think of research as one of the main components. Why? So far, if you happen to go through the history of Indian education, very, very less emphasis is made on research. Either in the medical education or engineering education or maybe in the law education or in teacher education, we have not focused seriously on research. What does the national education policy say? National education policy says in higher education, we are going to have 3 different types of educational institutions. One institution is called the degree giving or granting institution, where academics is the only important component over that. It is not going to bother about research. There is the next level, where academic is merged with research. This is the Tier 2 system. The Tier 3 will focus mainly on research. The institutions like IITs, the institutions like Tata Institute or Indian Institute of Science, such institutions are going to be more in number. For this is what is the national education policy in brief. When it comes to the school education, it takes care of childhood care and education. It ensures foundational literacy and numeracy. It ensures universal access and retention to students. And it is going to think of new curriculum and pedagogical practices. I told you about 5+3+3+4 design. Now when we think of this pre-primary education, the national education policy focuses its attention on the complete development of the brain. What do I mean by this? Did not the other policies take care of this? Certainly, all the policies have really taken care of. But the national education policy makes it very vivid. Now, the human brain, if you happen to think, the left brain is there, the right brain is there. Normally, in the school education, we were focusing more on the left brain. What is the left brain? The logic, the linear, the symbolic, the abstract, the verbal education, the temporal education, the regional, the digital, the analytic education. This is the left brain. But what does the right brain do? Right brain gives intuition, it gives holism, it gives concrete experiences, it is analogical, it is non-verbal, it is non-temporal, it is non-rational, and it is spatial, and it is synthetic. I have used the word rational and non-rational. Normally, father is rational, mother is non-rational, it is not irrational. I am not speaking of irrationality, non-rational. That means mother will be able to think about the phenomenon in a total different way. Therefore, right brain is the mother, left brain is the father, if you want to make a comparison of that kind of a thing. Now, the education in the National 2020 policy focuses on development of left brain as well as the right brain. If the left brain thinks of lettering, if it thinks of grammar, the right brain thinks of development of poetry, it thinks of small stories, it thinks of the novels. The left brain thinks of grammar point. This is the way in which I will be able to make a kind of a difference. Then transformation of curriculum and pedagogy. Now what is curriculum and pedagogy? Flexible curriculum. Now what is flexibility? Now if you happen to come to the secondary schools of today, the choices the student is going to have is very less. A student will study 3 core subjects and 3 languages. Wherever 3 language formula is there he uses 3 languages. In the states like Tamil Nadu, they study 2 languages. In the schools like CBSE, Central Board of Secondary Education, they study 2 languages in 9th, 10th standard and also 11th and 12th standard. Whereas in the state of Karnataka, they study 3 languages till 10th standard and 3 core subjects. When they go to the pre-university, they study 2 languages and 4 core subjects. When they go to degree, still they study 2 languages and 3 core subjects or 2 core subjects. Depending upon the pattern of education, the student is going to choose. Now what is flexibility here in NEP? Now in NEP, the choices are provided in the school education itself. The student can choose the art stream starting from 9th standard itself. He can go to commerce from 9th standard. He can go to field of science from 9th standard. But all these things will happen only when the student completes 10th standard, goes to the pre-university or the +2 level of education. Now what else is flexible? In the National Education Policy 2020, they have introduced vocational education. They have introduced art education. Now in the vocational education, a child can go to agriculture, he can go to carpentry, he can go to beautician. Several courses are offered over there. Student, depending upon his interest or her interest, can choose this curriculum. At the end of 10th standard, if the student family is forced to take up a kind of a job, the child is prepared to get into this job stream after the 10th standard. This is not possible in the present system, for that becomes flexible in nature. Then, when we think of education, education is not something where there is a memorization that is going to happen. We call it as rhetoricism. Rhetoricism means a child will learn something and he will register in it, and when he goes to the examination, he puts it out. It is only taking it in and putting it out. This is rote memorization method. National education policy is not for rote memorization. For what has the national education policy done? The load of the child in terms of the curriculum is reduced. I am translating a book of mathematics from the CBSE to the state of Karnataka now. As I am going through the book of mathematics, I find the book of mathematics being more friendly to the student. The student has to read the text now. The student has to understand the text. And the concept of mathematics that the child is going to learn, the volume is less. But one concept, the way he learns, that has become expanded. Take for example the concept of the decimal places, or the concept of powers of 10. Powers of 10 being minus, powers of 10 being plus. What does minus mean? What does plus mean? What is 5,000? What is 50,000? What is 50,000? What is 5 lakhs? When the student is writing 5 lakhs, supposing 1 0 is missed, it becomes 50,000. If we happen to express the same thing as 5 into 10 to the power 4, 5 into 10 to the power 3, 5 into 10 to the power 5, your mathematics will not go wrong. But that kind of mathematics is taught today by national education policy. Therefore, we move from remembering level, that is the registration or memorization, to the level of creation. Because education ultimately should make the individuals not only to become intelligent, but they should become creative. What is further more in the national education policy? Education should become equitable and it should become inclusive. Say I am a teacher for 40 years now. Even today, when I get into the class, these two things have not happened in the class. We do not have the concept of equitability in education, inclusiveness in education. Both of them go hand in hand. What is equitable distribution? Depending upon the nature of the child, the composition of the child from the social milieu, when the child comes to the school, there should be no differential between a student coming from the level 1 to level 2 to level 3. When I use the word level, I will think of socio-economic barriers. Or I will think it in terms of only social barriers. This should not happen. All children are born in this world to see that they get their fundamental rights. Education is a fundamental right. You cannot deny education to anyone. Everyone should have the equal chances of getting into education. Then they should have equal educational opportunity. If the opportunities of education is not made equal, how will you find out whether the child has a talent or not? Earlier, I am thinking of 1980s, 1970s, 1990s. The researches that were happening in education was socio-economic background of the student and his achievement. Go through the thesis all over India. You will get plenty of theses from Jammu Kashmir and to Kanyakumari only on socio-economic status of the individuals. What do those studies reveal? They used to reveal that the student who comes from a low socio-economic background will have a lower achievement. My dear friends, listeners, professionals who are viewing this program, please note there is a lot of change. Today, heredity is less important compared to the environment. You have heard through the social media, you have seen in the newspapers, a child who has absolutely nothing in the family has rose to the level of a colonel, a lieutenant, an administrative officer, a professor in the university. How is that it is possible? It is possible because of equitability and inclusiveness. Inclusiveness, don't think that it is only for the children who have the special needs. We used to earlier call them as disabled individuals. We today do not call them as disabled, we do not call them as physically challenged. We call them exceptional children. For children coming from different levels of their learning, I only use this concept. I do not say in terms of mental retardedness, physical retardedness, I do not want to use. Any difference that is there in the learning, the school education should be able to make a compensation for it. It is insisted in the National Education Policy. Languages, I have already told, Government of India is very serious on languages today. It makes the Pali, the Prakrit, as the subjects that can be studied by the individuals in the schools and colleges. Sanskrit, it says not only in the school level, in the higher education level, and it is trying to retrieve the Nalanda University. It is striving to bring about the passion for learning the languages, and the National Education Policy is setting up a new body which is called the Translation Committee or the Translation Body. What does it do? The most important books from the Indian languages, they are going to be translated to English, from English to rest of the languages in India, and if the book is found to be suitable to go across the universe, to across the international level, a Kannada book, a Tamil book, a Telugu book may get translated to French, Spanish, Dutch, German. For this kind of a translation body is going to be set up by the National Education Policy. And the National Education Policy emphasizes much on teachers. It considers the teachers as the torch bearers of change. I have already told about it, but there are so many things that ought to be done. Now, if you want to prepare the teachers to lead for a country which is going to be envisioned as the Vikasit Bharat and which is going to have a kind of a stand in the world, the preparation of the students become very important. For who will prepare the students? It is the teachers. Therefore, the kind of the teacher who comes to the society is very, very important. If you happen to see the kind of the change that is happening in the teacher education in India, any person who works in the teacher education feels low by the way the teacher education institutions are working across the country. Verma report had made it very clear. Most of the teacher education institutions are fit only to be shut down. It is not for prosperity. The committee report said this. Therefore, national education policy has taken a very stringent action on the teacher education. It says teacher education should become professional like law, medicine, and engineering. Therefore, the students who are intending to become teachers, they should make a decision as they make a decision for engineering, medical, and law after they finish their 12th standard. Therefore, NEP says 4-year integrated teacher education program. And who can run this? This education program of teacher education cannot be run by the sole education institution or independent teacher education institutions as they stand today in India. We have got only B.Ed colleges. We have got only D.Ed colleges. These institutions are called stand-alone institutions. NEP will not make way for stand-alone institutions from the year 2030. Now we are already in 2025. If there are teachers who are listening to this program, those who are working in the 2-year B.Ed program or the D.Ed program, you have to become aware now. Then who can provide the 4-year integrated program? It can be provided only by the institutions which hold the multidisciplinary degrees. A college which runs arts course, a college which runs science course, a commerce course, can have a 4-year integrated program. If your institution is having arts program, you can have 4-year integrated BA, B.Ed program. If your institution is a commerce stream program, 4-year commerce B.Ed program. If it is science, science B.Ed program. That multidisciplinary institution can run a 2-year B.Ed program. It can run 1-year B.Ed program. It can run 1-year M.Ed program, 2-year M.Ed program, integrated B.Ed and M.Ed program. Lots of opportunity and flexibility is generated for the teacher education in NEP. School complexes, I have already told, school complex is that in order to see that children will be able to have the best of their experiences. The school education is going to be controlled in 3 different ways. One institution will be for the development of curriculum. Another institution will be for administration and management. The third institution will be for assessment and examination. These 3 departments do already exist in almost all the states. They are going to be strengthened. The curriculum that is going to be developed in the school, normally the changes happen once in 10 years. Now the National Education Policy says it should happen in 5 years period. Because you know, we have got the Gen students, the Alpha generation, the Beta generation, the 2.0 generation, the 4.0 generation. Earlier the generation gap used to come after 100 years. It got reduced. Now today, the generation gaps can happen in this digital world in a minute or so. Because the kind of changes that are happening in the digital world, as all of us know, generation gaps keeps on happening. All those who are in 60s and 70s, we are called novice in education and technology. We are novice because we don't know it and we need to learn it. But the child who is born in 2025 gets born with a computer. with artificial intelligence. Now, what it may be the way in which the child can think of the use of technology. It will be at its fingertips, but it was not for us. For this is the way in which the changes will happen in school education. Then, education technology is to be made use of. In one of the writings of National Education Policy, it says, the illiterate of 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write. I repeat, the illiterate of 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, relearn, and digitally becoming illiterate. For if we do not pass through all these kinds of stages, no doubt all those people who have read or had education several years ago may become illiterate in the moment. It integrates the vocational education. I have already spoken about it. It speaks of adult education. It promotes the Indian languages and higher education. It is going to think of drastic changes. There is no professional education body, general education body, professional education, general education, all of them are going to be merged, and one single entity is going to control the whole of the higher education in India. And it will have academic universities and the research universities, and the National Education Policy says much of the higher education institutions should become autonomous in nature. What is autonomy? Autonomy is giving freedom to the institution to make its curriculum, to run the course the way it would like to run. Earlier, one university used to have the vision. It is to set the mission. For example, IGNOU, a larger university, has got its vision. Now, the affiliation of colleges to the universities, it is going to be minimized. Then what does the university do? University will become a chief body of research and post-graduation education. And your autonomous institutions will develop your own curriculum. For your university will have a vice chancellor. It will have a registrar, an academic registrar, an administrative researcher, various departments over that. Now when the autonomy comes, what is going to happen? Please understand, all of you, it's going to be a very, very big challenge to the college. Only those colleges, only those higher education institutions which can provide quality education with an affordable fee can exist. Quality becomes the key factor. During the process of evaluation, the university used to give the certificate. Somehow the colleges used to run the courses. Responsibility of the college was not much then. But today, when it becomes autonomous, it's a big challenge. The way you are going to attract the student community. You may have to think of marketing. You may have to think of advertisement. But any marketing, any advertisement, if the quality is not there, you know the people do not come. Therefore, the higher education is going to be a very, very big challenge. And liberal education, we have already told, liberal education is thinking of education integrated with science, commerce and other things. Then learning environment and student support. Now the National Education Policy says the meritorious students must be recognized well. And in order to recognize this, the National Education Policy is thinking of conducting various competitive examinations at different levels. The students who complete these courses will be provided with suitable scholarship for their learning. And it is an energized and engaged and capable faculty must be there. Now, whatever the national education policy that is going to come, as a teacher who has taught for over 40 years, unless a teacher himself or herself decides that I'm going to be here in order to make a student of quality to come out of the educational institution, no policy can bring about the change. It is not simply the faculty development program that one should attend. A teacher must be a voracious reader. You must know that you need to learn. In Kannada literature, there was a very great poet called G.P. Rajaratnam, who was a Kannada teacher. You know what he used to say? I make my notes every day. I do not look into the notes that was made by yesterday. I used to tear off the notes of the yesterday into the dustbin. This is the teacher profession. For this, the professional development programs, when they are conducted, you need to have a kind of a diary of your own. You must be able to write out the important points. And you will be able to come to know how to develop yourself. And for teachers, professional development always refers to the way in which I'll be able to change the curriculum, make the curriculum become more flexible. And empowered governance and autonomy in higher education governance. For this, you know, the 2025 192 is the bill number, the education bill. Just recently it is passed. The document is available. All of you can go through the way in which the higher education is going to change in India. Then the professional and higher education is going to be integrated. The national education policy is also thinking of establishing National Research Foundation. What are the goals? The goal says it is an autonomous body and a grant will be given to this. It is being promised by the government of Karnataka, the government of India. The amount of money that is going to be given to the research foundation is, at the starting, it is over 20,000 crores by the government of India. And it is for funding research projects that are going to come from universities and colleges. When I speak of colleges, autonomous colleges, private universities, the government bodies, any of these institutions can apply for that. It was earlier like UGC minor projects and major projects. Like that, the projects are going to be sanctioned. And it is building research capacity at academic institutions and creating beneficial linkages between research, government and industry. Now, as I have understood, very, very loose relationships are held between industry and universities in India. If you know, in some universities of America, there are certain universities which are called brinjal universities, because that university has provided the education for the growth of the brinjal, and it has become a very profitable agricultural activity. And those people who are growing the brinjal over there, they fund the university for its growth. But here, you know, we depend on the UGC funds.
UGC fund.
But now the university says, according to the national education policy, even the university should be able to derive its own money. For that is the nature of the change that is going to happen. If you want to make it, you must work very hard for it. Then, Rashtriya Shikshana Ayog, it is a central body which is going to take care of the whole of the concept of education in India, with certain bodies which are there in the state, which is going to look into the matters of education in terms of education policies and decisions, etc. Financing of education, as is the formula 80:20 or 90:10, such kind of a ratio, the central government and the state government is going to think of providing, for example, Sarva Shikshana Abhiyana or Rashtriya Shikshana Abhiyana, Uchyatara Shikshana Abhiyana. For such kind of thing, the central government will give a part of the money and the state will have to provide a part of the money. For in that way, the financing of education will be done. Now, the whole of the national education policy, whatever we discussed today, I have discussed in brief every component of the national education policy. Now, as a summary of what is being told now, the national education policy has been thought of as a Mobius strip. What is a Mobius strip? A Mobius strip is a continuous strip where if you happen to make a movement of it, it will come back to the same point again. For where is the starting, where is the ending, we will not to come to know. For such kind of a phenomenon is going to be education. For the national education policy says, in every epoch of humankind, knowledge represents the sum of what is created by all previous generations, to which the present generation adds its own. In Kannada we say, Hosa chiguru, hale beru, kudiralu, varasbogu. The root must be strong. And with the root of education, whatever we have, it may be the Upanishad education, Quran education, Bible education, whatever we are going to get the best out of it, build the new education upon it. Because ultimately, education is for the humankind. Ultimately, education is for the human peace. No education will say that you make a war. Any education will say you stop a war. But the education will give the complete picture of the war. It says what happened in the First World War, what happened in the Second World War. Probably in the 2030, 2040, the syllabus that we are going to study in our schools and colleges may think of the Ukraine and the Russia war. Whether it should happen, it is not supposed to happen. This kind of a discrimination ability, the generations of students should be able to get. So that is the vision of the national education policy. Therefore, I am happy that I have been able to present the whole concept. One important component is the foundation education. The Balabatikas are already started in the central schools. Now the children of the age 3 can get admitted to the school education now. Now how to bring that large number of students into school education is a challenge to any state. This work was done by the ASHA workers. It was done by Anganwadi workers. They do not have a proper training in educating the child. It is a big challenge to any state now. In what way we will be able to make them to teach in the school? Should they be taken as teachers? Should they be taken as workers? Is a big question. But foundation education is the basic education the national education policy declares. So therefore, the whole of NEP 2020 is a very, very big game changer. And it says the national education policy, one important component that all of us should learn is the student need not come to the university offline to get his degree. It has given option to the universities and the colleges today, make some programs as offline, some programs as online. What you make as online, the student should be able to get that curriculum and he must be assessed. Therefore, it is a blend of online and offline in higher education. For it is a blended system of education which national education policy thinks, because it emphasizes on use of education and technology to the maximum and optimum extent. I thank the IGNOU office for having given me an opportunity to discuss on a very important concept, the National Education Policy 2020. Namaste.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. You elaborated in this webinar NEP 2020, the game changer. As sir you highlighted, the NEP 2020 is emphasized on this early childhood education, school education, higher education, and research field. So it will create a path to generate a knowledge. Not only that knowledge should provide the career opportunity for also for the research and innovation and invention. So this is the motive behind. We open the multiple opportunity for the learners to explore the possibility wherever they can fit into. So on behalf of Regional Center Bangalore, on behalf of the university, I thank you very much you and having a more than 45 years of experience in teaching and particularly the teacher education, really you have given an input in this webinar. I once again thank you sir, thank you, all the business also.
All the best to the listeners.